I'm Algenon Cash, and you're locked in. This week, I've got the founder of Elaka Treats, Shafna. Joining us for a conversation to talk about how she has expanded her brand, starting out at local farmers markets, all the way to grocery stores and restaurants. And now she's looking to expand even further through a crowdfunding campaign. I'm so excited to give my audience an opportunity to learn more about this growing company. Shafna, I should have tested this before I brought you on. Am I pronouncing it correctly? Is it Elaka Treats?
It's Elaka Treats.
Elaka Treats. I told myself I should have practiced this with you before we went live, but Elaka Treats. We want to make sure we get that right. Well,
Yeah.
Shafna, let's start there. I had an opportunity to meet you last year for the first time. You were actually transitioning from one manufacturing facility to your newest location where you are now in Greensboro. But I also randomly had an opportunity to try your ice cream when I was down at a little shop in downtown Kernersville visiting a friend of mine. I saw your ice cream in the freezer and I had an opportunity to sample it, and it was outrageous. It's really, really good. So
Thank
let's
you.
let's just start there. Tell my audience a little bit about Elica and how you got started and your passion for ice cream.
So Elaka is just my platform to tell stories, really. I just felt this need to just put out something where I was conveying my story. That's how it started. And I stumbled upon, my own recipe of creating ice creams in a very unconventional way, which is using fresh produce as a base. And it started with plantain ice cream. And I knew then, okay, I have a thing. There's something here, something that I can actually probably like build on. And that's how the journey really, or the vision started. And I have to say, the vision started then, and the journey started much later, like, because it was just a nonstop roadblocks. I couldn't figure out how to start a business.
Hmm.
And finally, when I did, then COVID happened. And so the platform ended up being that, farmers market was my only my avenue to actually to launch my business. So, but I think it happened for the best because it really did help me with really truly understanding my product and my method and my process and just running how to run a business really. So that's what, it's just been through a lot of trial and error really that I got here. But the vision was always, it has always been actually to wholesale, to retail and grocery stores.
I'm my audience. I'm telling you, you have to try this ice cream. Even when you describe some of the flavors, I'm gonna be honest with you, Shafna. If I hadn't tried the ice cream, when I hear the flavors, I'm like, wow, would that taste good or would that go well together? But I'm telling my audience, it absolutely does go well together. You've got a very innovative and creative product. Working at the farmers market is a real grind. That's a hustle. And so many people in the food and beverage business get started that way, and then obviously they expand. But when you were in that stage of developing your brand, what are some important lessons that you learned?
Well, it really actually teaches you whether there is a market for your product at first. First of all, that's there. And then it teaches you just how to be able, because consumer packaged good business is much different from catering or restaurant business. It's not just a matter of just creating a menu and just putting out a product. You're really like you're making the same thing really day in, day out. It's not like your menu changes that much,
Hmm.
but you really need to have the whole packaging and the logistics of how you get the product from, from where you make it to where you sell it and how it's presented and that kind of that's the phase that farmers market really helps you with in and it's really a platform where you're really testing out and people are voluntarily participating in your trials to actually give you feedback and make you understand what is it that they feel and how is it that they're actually but it also lets you actually really get a really true sense of what consumers actually think and feel and what they want and they're looking for as well. It's a direct to consumer web platform, but you are right, you're interacting with them on one-on-one and you're really getting to know what is it that they are looking for. So that's probably like one of the biggest lessons, of what is it that consumer, because quite often when we have a vision, we get like the very the narrow vision that we have that of our product. It should be like this, it should be made in such a way, it should be consumed in such a way. But then they open up your eyes and go like, oh, actually there is like I actually thought of my product as a, as an end product, as in there's nothing more to do with my flavor. You can add to the flavors because it's a complete package. Like the flavors are, like you said, are so complex and it's out of ordinary. And so my thought process was that, well, you don't have to add anything. You don't need to do any more toppings or mix-ins or pair it with even anything else. But you'll be surprised how many people actually find another way to elevate the whole experience of having the product. So you really do learn a lot, really. Like it's not, there is no finish or end line with the product, really. Consumers can always take the product to a whole nother level.
Hmm. No, I love this, and I love your commitment to research and developing the product and the overall brand because I see so many entrepreneurs that's really where they go left. They are so committed to the product as is that it's very difficult for them to receive feedback from the market and make those adjustments and be adaptable to what consumers are telling them so that they can evolve the product and hopefully eventually generate sales. So I'm curious, real quick, what did you learn though? What was consumers telling you about your product? Just a couple of things that maybe you learned about your product that you didn't know before those farmer market days.
So my product, I mean, my customers have always loved, like I don't put out a product out in the market unless I'm very satisfied with it. And I am a little bit of a food snob, so my expectation levels are really high. And pretty much all my customers, they do really, really love my product. But the feedback that I was having was predominantly over my packaging and things like that. Like I didn't really start with that big pay. I didn't have the capital to really invest that much money on packaging. So I was literally initialing my flavors, and they couldn't. Some of my regular customers still couldn't remember the flavor names. They would have to ask me. So that was one thing, like I did assume that, okay, once you keep buying it and purchasing it, you're eventually gonna remember it. But that wasn't the case, really. So many of them gave me the feedback. They still need to see that flavor to really truly remember it, because they can't just remember it by just, hearing it from me and then going like, oh yeah, this is what it is, zucchini orange blossom, the ZOB. What does that mean? So yeah, packaging was where I got the most feedback on, and then they definitely also actually, my customers are the one who actually led me and guided me towards even how to, like, who would be potential customers that I could actually approach.
Hmm.
Because grocery stores is not a very easy, quick entry, whereas local restaurants are a good, are an easier entry. And local restaurant owners are actually also scouting for products at farmers markets. So it was actually, they were my ideal customers when they were at farmers market to actually be able to start and initiate wholesale.
Hmm.
And so my first wholesale account, which is Vimla's Curry Blossom, it's an Indian restaurant in Chapel Hill. People had been telling me about her for probably a good year and a half by the time I actually met her in person when she came to Chapel Hill Farmers Market. And but it wasn't until, that I met her, I realized, okay, yeah, I understand understand now why my customers were all, like advising me and guiding me to approach her. Like, so those are really good feedbacks that they gave me, which I just didn't understand what to do with those advice. But I think once that happened, it kind of like kickstarted and gave me some more confidence actually to give more value to my customers' feedback and
Mm,
how to approach and how to actually probably even think of those avenues which I never thought of as as potential customers. So yeah, those I think those are the two main aspects really that I really that helped me a lot with when being at farmers market. And then also there were other benefits as well as with especially with Chapel Hill Farmers Market being so close to the UNC campus. That market kind of connected me to a lot of student body organizations at UNC,
mm.
where who has contributed towards my business in so many different ways with drafting me my employee handbook and like because they need projects and so and they're looking for startups to work on. So I ended up being a startup that they were all pretty excited about, and I've had quite a lot of contribution. And now I even have two team members actually who are from UNC, who are UNC graduates.
No, that is huge, and I just love how receptive you are to feedback, and especially from your customers, because again, I see that being a place where young entrepreneurs just completely go wrong. And when they hear back from their customers and they don't hear what they want to hear, they want
Yeah.
to ignore the feedback instead of being very receptive to it. And I just think that's incredible. And I love the way that you just sort of got started, because that's the other advice I give to entrepreneurs. Everything doesn't have to be perfect. The packaging doesn't have to be perfect. The logo doesn't have to be perfect. The colors don't need to be perfect. Now, the product itself doesn't even need to be perfect. You just need to get started and start that process of the feedback loop so that you can keep evolving the product and the packaging and the brand and the colors and all the things that you've worked over time. Another area I see entrepreneurs go wrong is access to capital.
Mhm.
Access to capital is like the lifeblood of any business. And you just started a crowdfunding campaign through Honeycomb Credit. What made you choose that platform to expand your brand?
So I tested waters with crowdfunding. I think it was GoFundMe. It was a collaborative project with UNC students. One of their student body organization, Build a Hill. We did that collaboratively, and so part of the funds that we raised, predominantly two-thirds of it went towards my business, and then a third went for their initiative, which is they give out micro loans to startups. Um, and and I as much as I appreciated, the those who contributed to that campaign, and we did. It wasn't like it was a big raise or anything like that, but it was pretty. We were happy for then what we needed. It was sufficient enough. But I think it just made me feel a little. I feel a little uncomfortable that I felt like I owed people things, and therefore that's why like Honeycomb became a platform that I felt a little more comfortable that with, so that I can actually pay them back, and they're actually benefiting from my growth, and that they can see, and they're investing in my potential growth itself rather than just being charitable. And that's so like not that there is anything wrong with being charitable, but I wanted people to invest in me because they're almost betting on me. So that was for one major reason why Honeycomb is a platform that I went towards. And plus on top of that, it wasn't like I'm not from here, so I don't really have much of a social network here for me to actually channel into and to be able to raise that much kind of funds within a network itself. So I felt like, me tapping into a network of potential investors or people who think of themselves as, as small local investors, that would be a better fit. And that's what really made me decide to go with peer with Honeycomb Credit.
Did you consider a more traditional equity raise, or was there something about a more traditional equity raise that you didn't like, or did you like the idea of being able to hold on to all the equity yourself while still bringing in the outside capital, or how did you make that decision?
Um, I don't think that my business is there yet for me to go with the traditional equity raise, really. So that's the reason, like, this is really truly the campaign that I did with Build a Hill. That's not even, wouldn't even be something that I would consider like, our first initial round of fundraising, even. This is really truly my first round. And I just don't think that right now it's in a position where I should be even offering anyone equity. It just wouldn't make sense. That's why, like, I have to be able to scale I have to be able to scale my production in order to really truly validate and realize the what this brand is really going to be like. Um, it's not just a matter of just me making a lot more products and selling. It's also about really truly getting all my operations streamlined and figuring out and implementing systems, enterprise systems, because you can't really run a manufacturing business or a CPG business without having without having systems in place, really. So it's about trying to, to realize those ideas and those concepts I have, really.
You
And
know,
that's just the reason why I don't think that this stage is where I should be actually offering equity.
Shafna, I absolutely love how pragmatic you are, and I hope my audience that's listening, and whether they're listening live or they catch this recording later on, I hope they pay close attention to how you're approaching this because I'm telling you, I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs who they just started a business 4 weeks ago, and now they've attached some kind of crazy valuation to their business, and they some kind of way believe they've got a $5 million business and it's only 5 weeks old, and they can't justify it, they can't explain it. It's just something that they've gotten stuck in their head, and when they go out and try to raise money, they wonder why people aren't tripping over themselves to write checks. Well, the business just doesn't have any true value yet. And I think sometimes founders find it difficult and challenging to just simply acknowledge that you have to be able to work and create the value as you're describing and
Exactly.
talking about. And then at some point you do have something that's, you have an asset that's worth something, and you can go out and, raise equity capital and do the kind of fun things that we see on Bloomberg and CNBC and, that
Yes.
kind of thing. So,
I mean, that's the
um,
thing. I think, like, when us entrepreneurs, we have that, like, we're so attached to our idea
yes.
that, we so overvalue it. And it's not that worth that value. It's just that it's not there yet. It's just in a very nascent stage that it needs to be flushed out and built, and you need to really grow it and raise it like a child so that it's
Yes,
that
and it is like a child. I mean, you literally have to comfort and care for it just the same
yes.
way you would another human being. You begin to talk a little bit about something around your expansion and how when you expand a manufacturing company like you're doing, it's so important that you strike this balance between expansion and growth, but
Mm.
also maintaining the quality of that product, that same flavor and taste that I had the first time I sampled your product in downtown Kernersville. What are your plans to try to maintain that balance as you continue expanding?
So that's where I really truly think, like, we, even at an early stage itself, at base, at startup or the initial stage itself, when I was just validating my product at farmers market, even then itself, it was very evident that, that we have to have a very set order of procedures, and everything has to be very structured and very precise in order to be able to make sure that we can actually recreate, repeat, the same end product. But I think like I read that's why I really do think that in order for us to be able to scale at a regional level where we're trying to, create a regional presence for our brand, it is actually implementing these enterprise systems. I do think it is technology really that really will help. It's not just a matter of um having everything written down or having everything just organized. It's also a matter of being able to implement some systems that will kind of automate some of this, so some aspects of our operation that we are not having to focus on the small minutest detail. And I know that we're just a startup, and so like like most people will say that as a startup you don't need to invest in those kind of systems, but I really truly do see value in implementing those systems, especially when my process is not traditional and conventional. It is a little different from what how my products are not made as the typical ice creams are made. So then it is something that's a little different and something that I have to train people. When it comes to training people, that's where things can go. Like you can have the same instruction tra- interpreted in so many different ways.
Yeah.
And it will surprise you how many different ways that one simple statement has been interpreted, And that's where I feel like that's why it's very important. I feel that we have to have at a startup level itself. Yes, there aren't that many softwares that are out there available in markets right now, but I wish, tech businesses would focus on consumer packaged good businesses and actually implement. But I do think that there is a market over there for CPG businesses for to have these kind of software, these kind of systems in place, so that we can actually implement that at a startup level itself and be able to scale and grow rather than always having to depend on a co-packer,
Mm.
co-manufacturer, or having to sell your business completely because now you can't scale beyond that level, of as a startup. I think it is systems that will actually enable us to be able to scale and still maintain ownership of your product rather than just giving that off, handing that off to someone else.
Some weeks back, I had Mario Aldius on my show, and we talked about artificial intelligence and just
Mhm.
the disruption that's occurring across all business platforms as a result of AI. So I'm certain there's some smart person that is listening to
There.
this conversation, and they're already coming up with a suite of products to address what you're talking about. Here in America, we have some very large consumer packaged good companies that have been born here. Um, the companies that have come out of America have not always been known for their cultural influence when it comes to food. However, I mean, you could say some of these products are quite boring when you look at them judged in on the world stage. Um, what how how are your customers and even the investors that you're talking to, how are they receiving your products and that sort of cultural influence that you're introducing through Elaka Treats?
So they definitely see the value in my brand because of those flavors. It is because of the fact that I am executing cultural flavors. So they definitely know that is, the highlight of my brand. Um, it's not because there are so many other USPs as well. Like it's all natural. My products are completely natural. We use wholesome ingredients. We make everything pretty much from scratch. So all those things are assets, but those are not really what attracts people and really really impresses. It is in the end, it's the flavor the product when it touches their mouth, their taste buds. That's what leaves the most impression. And so that is what really drives them and really what attracts them to the product in the end. The other stuff and all initially, yeah, because we infuse everything with cardamom. That's amazing. We are executing these cultural flavors. That's also that idea is impressive, but unless that idea is, translates to a great product when it touches their mouth, they don't really care.
Hmm.
And that's where it really does make a difference. So it's being really received very well in that sense, where by the consumers and even investors, they're very impressed by the product. But the problem is also at the same time with as far as investors, when they look at me, is the fact that how capital intensive CPG business itself is capital
Yeah.
intensive, and then on top of that, I have a very temperature sensitive product to them, which makes it even way much more capital intensive. So those are the parts. So that's why like everybody wants, to validate your brand to some extent before they come in and they go, oh yeah, we're also gonna bet on you. Like they have faith in the product, they love the product and all that stuff, but it's also very capital intensive, which kind of, is what scares people away as well from investing in it.
Yeah, the ice cream has got a real like smooth, creamy type texture. It almost reminds me of like custard almost. It's got that same kind of consistency that custard has, not like a typical standard hard pack
No.
ice cream that you would think of. So it does have a lot of
Yeah,
unique
it's a
flavors.
balance. The idea was like to create a product that has a balance that's like a in between what would be considered a custard, as well as also has a little bit more of so like a gelato kind of. But
Mm.
it really depends on the flavor, really. The flavor is what really decides how the texture is really going to be. If if I want to execute something that is actually neat, that I want it to be grainy, then that's where hence what the texture is gonna be. It's gonna be a little grainy. It's just a matter of it's not about having that really finesse and really fine, smooth texture that today in most commercial ice creams are. And that's achieved predominantly by adding processed or naturally derived ingredients. I like to keep my products all completely natural and wholesome itself as much as possible, rather than having processed or derived ingredients.
Are you taking any cues or guidance from like other large based food companies, others that might be in the consumer packaged goods space?
So I don't know how much advice or guidance I'm taking, or like, but I like I've been telling everyone, the idea is, and I know you said that American, there are a lot of big American brands which are kind of like very bland, or however you said it,
Just
but
boring. Yeah, yeah. I mean, to some degree,
boring, yeah.
yeah. I mean,
But the truth is also like American brands are the ones that are also global brand that has established that global brand. Um, and so my aspiration for Elaka is actually for it to be something like Coke or Pepsi. That's what I say. Like I'm not trying to be anything else. I want to be like Coke or Pepsi. Like
yeah.
that's what the vision is. Because there isn't a single person on this planet who wouldn't know what Coke or Pepsi is. You can go to the most remote village in one of the most underdeveloped country on this planet, and they will know what Coke and Pepsi are. Like there is no one who doesn't know Coke and Pepsi on this planet,
I, I
and that's what my goal is.
I think what American companies, when it comes to consumer packaged products, I think what we probably do a good job of is standardizing the product in such a way that no matter where you consume the product, it always tastes the same. Now you can
Yeah.
say, well, it may not be very unique or it might have a certain blandness to it or whatever the case may be. I mean, McDonald's to me, obviously to me and to most people, they don't have the best hamburger in the world, but
No,
they sell more hamburgers than anybody in the world. And that's because they're very standardized. I know that if I walk into McDonald's around the corner from my house, that
It's the
burger is
same
going to
thing.
taste the exact same if I walk into a burger restaurant in India. It's gonna be the
Exactly.
same product. It's got the same flavor and texture and so forth. So I think what American companies have done a great job of is standardizing products
Standardizing.
so that the experience is always the same. There's a great documentary on the History Channel called "The Food That Made America."
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've ever seen that, but someone like you get a lot of value from watching it. But it talks about how a lot of the great food brands in America were born and
Hmm.
how they went through this process of standardization so that they could become global brands. Shafna, I'm
Yeah.
going to run out of time here soon, but I do want to jump back to something you said earlier. You talked about the product being in the grocery store, and you even mentioned the challenge around being able to get a consumer product in the grocery store. One, how challenging was that for you? And then two, from an audience that might be listening, what grocery stores or stores, retail stores in the region or the area can we find the product?
So with local stores, it's a little easier. So local co-ops and local retail, specialty stores and all, it's a little easier where the communication and interaction is completely very personal and one-on-one with the market. Whereas well with the merchant manager or whoever the manager itself. But when it comes to, national retailers or regional retailers, then it becomes, very, there's a lot more channels to go through really before you even initiate a conversation of whether this product is going to be onboarded or not. So with local, it is easier, but it's just that, it's every stage there is a phase that you're going to go through where you're still trying to discover and you're trying to figure things out. There's never going to be that you're going to get into into a market with being completely prepared and ready. So never expect that. You will never know what the expectations are from the store or from even at a local level. They might have some specific requirement or something like that. Um, so I think the difficulty is really in just getting all the information together, really. That's where I always feel like it's that having that access to information on how to go about doing things, that's where it takes up a while at some time. And yeah, otherwise, unless you're dealing with big, national and international retailers and distributors or someone, it's not as bad a process, but everything takes time. It is a lengthier process than just, oh, I'm just going to show up, which was my illusion that, oh, I'm just going to go ask take my samples and they're going to go like, oh yeah, this product is great, let's onboard it. No,
Yeah.
it's not as simple as that.
Well, and most people think I want to stay there for one moment. Most people think it might be as simple as you just described. And so someone might be listening to this and they've developed their own product, whether it's a food product or an innovative dress or a pair of shoes or whatever their product might be. What advice would you give to that person? Because I think some people get so frustrated and they lack the internal resilience at times, for the process
To
that it
keep
takes for
going.
you to make that breakthrough. So for that person listening to you and they're saying, "Man, Shafna, I'm about to quit," what would you say to them?
I would say don't quit. That's the most important thing, actually. It is that, really. That's the most important thing. Don't quit. Like, I have thought of quitting probably like 7, 8 times just today after this radio show. Just today. And you will have those thoughts. And it's absolutely normal to have those thoughts, but just don't do it. Just don't act on it. Act on those other instincts, act on all the ideas and all the on your to-do list, the things that you need to get done to get your product. Like, because there are so many factors that comes into play when a store is deciding to get on board your product. They need to think of where are they going to put your product, and would it be the right time also to put your product, actually, like, is it the right time to introduce your product to their customers at this time? It may not be. we might think that it's a great time. We can just why shouldn't a product just sit in there? But it's not that simple, really. People don't necessarily purchase every single thing that you're like. We know ourselves as customers. It's not like we buy everything or we've tried out every brand of the same, a type of product. Like we don't. We still stick with what we know or what we're familiar with. Something like
Coke
that
and
was
Pepsi.
exactly.
That's exactly
Exactly.
what we do. We stick with what we know. Real quick here. I got a couple more, and I need to let you go. As you're growing and expanding, you're raising this money. You've got a new concept that you want to introduce called the Elaka Pods.
Mhm.
Talk a little bit about that, and then also as a tag along, what does the next 5 years look like for your growing brand?
So our Elaka Pods concept is it's something that's always been in the back of my mind since the conception of my business branded. So because I believe our product is very cultural and therefore it's very ideal. It's an ideal product in cultural venues, and which means cultural centers. And most cultural centers, from my experience here, especially like I don't really have much that great of a culinary experience or food experience, even
Yeah,
on the level of snacks. Like it's pretty basic or mediocre or way below mediocre. And I think food is what really kind of solidifies a whole experience. Like we always end a celebration with something with some kind of food, especially dessert, in order to just bring and solidify that celebration that we had, that whole experience we had, and make it more memorable. And I think quite often here, like you go watch a really nice show, and the only thing that you have as an option to actually eat and to stay for sustenance is something that is like you
popcorn and
really
potato
question.
chips,
Yeah,
candy
and you
bars. Yeah,
really question like even some of the sandwiches that they offer. Like, what is this really?
yeah,
Like, how hard can it be for you to put two bread together and just some kind of meat in
yeah.
between? And that's it. Like, why is this tasting so weird? So that's where I felt like there is definitely a market. There's a market gap there that can be filled with actually being able to provide a product that's flavorful, first of all, and on top of that, it actually is something that people will actually enjoy and will actually leave an impression on them, which just adds to that whole cultural experience that they're having at these cultural centers. So we're pilot testing this concept of the self-service, self-checkout kiosk, when freezer kiosk, I guess. It's a very basic pilot level testing, but we're testing it out at Art Center in Carborough, and that's something that we're trying to scale actually. We hope that we can actually develop that, really get that, like I said, as something that's standardized and systematic, and have employee use, technology in order to be able to make that a very streamlined experience for the consumers.
I love it, and I love the collaboration that you're trying to work with like cultural centers and the hubs, and that makes a lot of sense. You are a very smart and talented founder and
Thank
entrepreneur,
you.
so I have no doubt that you're going to be wildly successful. I'm so thankful that you locked in with us today and helped my audience learn more about Elika Treats, and not only what you're doing currently, but what can come in the future. So who knows? One day, Elika Treats may be just as well known as Coke and Pepsi.
Hope
That
so.
that is
That's
your
the
that is
dream.
your intention, and
That's the
intention
dream.
and intention can be very powerful when directed in the right direction. So, really quick, Shafna, for my audience that might want to learn more about Elika Treats or even the fundraising that you're doing for your expansion, where should they go? Where can they learn more about the opportunity?
So you can go to Honeycomb Credit, their website, their homepage itself. It has a complete listing of all the offerings, and we're also listed there. So please do check out Honeycomb Credit. You can invest for as minimum as low as $100, and if we're offering 12.25% interest, so you're getting a good return. And as far as our products are concerned, in the Triad area, well, places that you can check out are Deep Roots Market, our local co-op in Greensboro, Kernersville, Busy as a Bee, where well that's where Algenon actually tried my product, and right across from them, Junk Teak. Where else? Oh, Kolkata, they're carrying our product on their menu. Taza Indian Bistro, that's in Greensboro. Scuppernong Bookstore here in Greensboro. Yeah. Then we do a little bit of business also with some sort of country clubs as well, which obviously you need to have membership.
I just encourage my audience to go find Elaka Treats on the internet, go to their website, learn more about what they're doing and some of the places they might be located. Think about it. If you would have had a chance to buy in the Coke or Pepsi for $100, would you have done it? And so
Exactly.
this is the opportunity that's before you. For $100, you could be a part of the story that Shafna is creating and the expansion of her brand. Shafna, thank you again for your time. This was a great conversation. I could have done this for at least another hour. Just so many nice hidden gems that you were sharing about entrepreneurship. So thank you again for that. And to my audience, as always, thank you for locking in with me. Make sure you stay tuned to WTOB because every Sunday morning, that's where you can lock in with me. But if you happen to miss me there, you can always find me wherever you like to find your favorite podcast, whether that's Apple, Pandora, Spotify. Wherever you like to go, you can lock in there. And until next time, y'all stay locked in.
Thank you.